Hello, welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today's video we're going to have a first impressions view at Revell's Catalina. So this is a 1/72 scale kit which Revell describe as a skill level 4, and it says new there. So box is the usual dreadful Revell end opening box. I say that's dreadful because most model builders, or certainly a lot of model builders, work out of the box, so it's very difficult to put your sprues in and out of there. So best thing to do is just cut the lid and make a flap so you can get in and out of the box better, which does weaken the box, but there you go. Personally, I don't. I take everything out of the box right at the start of the build and put it in a plastic container. So but for a lot of modelers, this type of box is a real pain, so I'm not sure why they don't change it. Kit number is 03902, and you can see there PBY-5A Catalina, and we have a nice picture of 3 Catalinas in flight above the clouds there, possibly over the ocean by the looks of that, maybe. On the side, have a little bit of information in the box art again. It says 121 parts, 26.8 centimetres long and 42.1 centimetres wide. On this end you've got something that basically says we're Revell and this is a model kit, and then you've got the same information presented on a landscape format and then a portrait format on this end. So that's the box. Let's have a look at what we get inside the box. So on the back of the box there's quite a lot of information. There's a link there to Revell's brand of consumables. There's the various paints that you're going to need, again the Revell paint references. There's some close-up pictures of the model to try and get you to buy into buying the model, and a little bit of information and a picture of the sprues and what you get. So that all presents itself really quite nicely, actually. So I've just dragged the contents out, and we've got one large bag, and we've got the instructions there. Decals are in the bag, and then within this large bag that I've just cut open, we've got all the sprues, which appear to be separately wrapped. So that's good. I mean, nothing there is going to really move around, so packing is let's say not bad, and value. By value we mean a bit on the cheap side, but everything's separated, so that's all good. So sprue A. Now interestingly, these 2 sprues here have come in one bag separately, one under the other. There's no sprue reference letter on this, but quite clearly at one point this sprue was connected to that sprue. So basically they have nipped this off or snapped this off in the factory to be able to get it to fit in the box. So we're going to look at this as all one sprue, sprue A. So let's start with what looks like the tail there. So we've got some very nice texturing actually on these parts. It has quite a rough, can you hear that? Quite a rough texture. And then we've got a lot of rivet detail and nicely recessed panel lines. So the tails look really nice actually. I'm guessing they were material, which is why it's different. It's possibly over exaggerated given the scale, but still look nice. Then we have what look like exhaust covers some form of bomb or drop tank or something like that, or it could be the part of the, I don't know, looks like a bomb. And then we have some smaller parts there. Then the main frame has the two fuselage halves, and instantly the first thing I spotted was we have some significant sink there right in amongst the rivet line, and then more sink there on the rivet line, and that could be sink, or the shape's wrong or something, but that looks wrong reflecting in the light. There's lots and lots of rivet detail, which is nice. How accurate it is difficult to say. And then underneath we've got lots of panel lines and more rivet detail. Basic shape looks right. The famous teardrop bubble windows at the side there. Yeah. So the same on this side. No flash particularly. A little bit of heavy seam work, but nothing major. A little bit of flash on these parts here actually, now I've said that. And we can see we've got separate landing gear, which is basic but looks quite nice. Some struts there with the hinges moulded on. The hinges also look clearly like hinges, so that works okay. Got some finer details there, aerials. Engine cowls are all one piece, and as a result have some sinking, and I'm not sure if that's flash or damage. We've got some interior detail there for the wheelbase, with some very heavy injector pin marks. No detail on the inside of this other than the only real feature is the injector pin marks, which again are very heavy, will need quite a bit of filling if they're visible, which I suspect one or two of them will be. And then we've got the wheels there. So there is some patination on the tyres, so there is some tread there. They're not weighted, the tyres, but the wheel hubs look quite nice. And then some more fine tiny parts. So typical Revell, it's a mismatch of some very nice thought out detail, this texturing, and rivet detail with some flash and sink. Sprue B has wing sections on it, so two halves, upper and lower, with a cutout there for the fold up section of the wingtip, which has the float on it. Just like the tail, we've got this textured end, and the flaps are already moulded in, and then lots and lots of rivet detail. Unfortunately, there's some heavy moulding on the end here, so when you remove these, unfortunately you're going to damage some of this surface texture, which is a real shame, and you've got that on both sides. So it's on the trailing edge where the texture sort of ends, so you might get away with it on that half, but you won't on that half, I don't think. But there is no sink in there. Moulding's nice and crisp on this. Location lugs to pull it together, so proof will be in the fitting, but that all looks good. Sprue C, so that's the centre section of the wings, with the engine nacelles pre-moulded in. So we've got an upper section here, and just like the other wing tips we saw, we've got these ejector pin points moulded in, which if you take them off carefully shouldn't give you an issue on that side. Unfortunately, the moulding is quite heavy on this one here particularly, So you will unfortunately be sanding away some of this nice texturing they've put on. How noticeable it'd be under paint, I'm not sure. It's only tiny, but I don't know. You'd have to see. I think you'd probably get away with it. But otherwise, the rivet detail is nice. The panel lines are nice. The texturing is looking good. Yeah. So Sprue D now. And we've got the engine fronts moulded as one piece. We've got the two propellers there. Thankfully, no connection points on the actual blades, which is always good to see. We've got some guns there, but they're totally featureless. Totally featureless. That's a real disappointment, actually. The guns are very disappointing. We've got the wheels there for steering the aircraft. Some of the smaller parts, pitot tube, that type of thing. Two seats, which are absolutely, totally featureless. They don't look very realistic at all. Then you've got the floats there, which are in two parts. Lots of rivets on it. Massive amount of sink on that part there. Huge sink, if you can see that in the light, I don't know. Got a big U-shaped sink there, so you're going to either deal with the sink and lose all the rivet detail, or you're going to have to put up with a sink. Okay. Some struts there. Yeah. Okay, the next Sprue E has all the transparent parts on. And we've got a single piece cockpit canopy there, which has the rivet detail printed on it and looks good. It starts at the edge, so it starts on the frame. There's no bodywork on there, so masking and painting's a little bit more tricky. Then we've got some clear parts for the fuselage halves, wing lamps, the famous bubble tiers, with the rivet detail and the struts on there, masked up. That'll look all right. There is some, possibly as we'd expect, given this, there is some distortion at the bottom of these. So I'd say round about the bottom 25% on each side it has distortion in it. It might have been better to have made these as separate parts, 3 separate parts to get rid of the distortion, maybe. They look quite thick as well, which possibly doesn't help for these gun tubs. I've definitely seen worse. I've definitely seen better. They're not crystal clear, they're slightly foggy, but will do. Okay, so G is the last sprue out, and we've got what look like a couple of bombs, 4 bombs there to build up. So we've got some internal parts here, which are very basic. I think they're ejector pin marks on the side, and then a sort of a token doorway. Again, I think those are probably bulkheads. We'll see better when we get in. Those look like the tail parts for these bombs here. Not quite sure what that is. Some form of radiator grill or something like that. And that looks like the front of the propellers there. And that is it for the plastic parts. Okay, decal sheet, fairly small decal sheet. We've got a dashboard there and some seat belts, seat harnesses. We've got the stars, and we've got some stars and bars there, so I don't know whether that's for two different types. We'll have a look. There are no stencils particularly. You've got the prop labels, and there's quite a few of these, whatever they are. They look like, I need my stronger glasses on, they look like sort of don't walk here markings or something, but very few decals. Quite a lot of carrier film between some of these, but the stars don't have much at all, and they don't feel too thick, so they're not bad. They're not bad. Says printed in Italy, so I'm not sure if they're cartograph or not. Don't think so. Anyway, yeah, quite a limited amount of decals. Right then, instructions. So we have a nice stapled colour A4 instruction manual. Tells you that it's a level 4. I'm not sure I agree. Then you get a nice picture of the actual built-up model, which is good to see. It's always better to see a built-up model than an artist's impression or drawing of what the model could look like. Then a little bit of the company information there. Then, as always, fairly standard approach for Revell. You get some very nice pictures here with some tips and symbols and keys. It tells you things that you're going to use through construction. Gives you some tips there on magnifying, painting on the sprue, drying times, so on and so forth. First step, clean your parts. Then we have some safety instructions, which tells you what these are. So make 2 sets, paint here, don't glue, all of that type of stuff. And then that carries on through to the second page. Decals, clear parts, so on and so forth. Then we've got the paints, and obviously it's referring to just Revell paints, but you'll be able to work out that for yourself. And it's actually telling you paint mix ratios. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different paints there, and 5 of them need to be mixed. Think not. And then we've got some more paints, another one which needs to be mixed. And it gives you some basic maths there. Then you get quite detailed sprue shout out. Black areas are not used, so we've got some areas that are not used. Quite a few that are not used actually. And then they're all used on these. And then we come to the instructions. So the steps are numbered rather than lettered, which is good. Sort of makes sense to me. And they're nice big colour pictures that are separated into nice easy steps. I do like the layout of Revell instructions. So it's giving us the colour shout outs there. So in this first step you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. Most of them need painting first. Then the second step is doing the same on the opposite side. So we're building the wheels first rather than the cockpit. Then we're going down to the fuselage. Some sections that are visible will be painted. Clear parts going in. Then we've got those featureless guns going in. Maybe they're featureless because you can't really see them behind those shields, not sure. Dashboard being built up. Gunner's positions, then those totally square featureless seats going in onto a totally flat, featureless floor, and that's going to look nothing like the actual cockpit, is it? It really isn't. Right, so that looked like a radiator as a walkway between the two token doors. So I guess that goes in there. So that will be seen with the. You've got quite a big opening there, and very little detail going inside really. Build up the bombs, put the fuselage halves together, and then we're on to the wing construction. Some drilling to be done there. Putting the floats together. And then we're building the floats up. I'm guessing you can have them up and down by the looks of it. Then we build the wing together before adding it on, and then we've got the tail construction. I'm not sure that those steps make 100% sense to me. I probably would have put the tail on first, but it's neither here nor there. Then we've got the basic engine that we build up. We've got the supports that go under the wings there, wheels going onto the undercarriage, and the flaps for the nose wheel. Engines get mounted, exhausts, bombs, aerial or radio antenna, and then finally the transparencies, radio loop and so on. Some drilling to be done on the transparency. So 44 steps completes the build. Then as we turn over, we've got the colour chart shout out, so 2 profiles top and bottom. So that's a nice way of doing it, nice and clear, nice large pictures with good clear decal shout outs. So against the blue, those white decals will look really nice. So you basically got you've got the basic decals there, but there would have been a lot more on that, I'm sure. If you compare that to the number of decals that Airfix put on their 1/48 scale Walrus, this is absolutely nowhere near in comparison. And then we've got a second scheme. Okay, so I'd missed that. So 1947, so that's out of Illinois, 1947, and that's Alaska, 1943. So if you want to do a war version, they've got that, which is quite nice in the two-tone scheme, I think. And then a blank page at the back for any notes you might want. So there we have it. What are my first impressions? Right, okay, so it's definitely better than buying the classic kit from Airfix, as in parts aren't warped and you know they're going to fit together roughly, at least. Because it's a fairly new tooling, you've got less clean-up than the classic Airfix. But if we think about Revell's main competitor being Airfix, and we look at Airfix's fairly recently released Walrus that came out around about the same time of this, and then they've re-released it as the Silver Wings version, and I've built the Silver Wings version. It is nowhere near the standard of Airfix. It is really not in the same league as the new Airfix stuff. I think they're oversimplifying the interior to the point that it actually detracts from the model. When you look in there, it's going to look very, very basic, and you can see in the cockpit, and you can certainly see into the centre section here. In the main, the exterior detail's okay, but again, the engines are oversimplified. I'd like to have seen better construction of the engine so that it looked more in scale. You could argue you won't see a lot of it in there, but I would argue back you will see some of it, and you will be able to see all that thick marking from the push rods and stuff. So, you know what, a few more pieces in there to assemble would have made a world of difference to the overall look of that. The same with the cockpit. A few more parts, a little bit of an increased part count around the cockpit and maybe around the interior. I mean, Airfix are putting the toilet in now, and they're putting detail in that you don't see, whereas Revell haven't quite got to the point of putting in the detail that you would see. So I think Revell are starting to lag behind, increasingly lag behind. Now, I don't buy Revell kits very often for that reason. But I bought a classic Catalina kit because I was given one as a kid, and I built it up and I really loved it. It was a Christmas present, and I wanted to revisit that experience, and it was a dog of a kit all these years later. So I bought this as an alternative to the Airfix, and it's a little disappointing. The decal count, disappointing. If I compare that to what Edward would have done with this, you'd have had 6 or 7 different paint schemes, you'd have had double the number of decals, you'd have had better interior detail. Airfix, exactly the same. You'd have only got 2 paint schemes, but you'd have got a lot more detail and a lot more decals. So, you know, it's going to look like a Catalina from the outside. It's got quite a lot of nice surface detail and surface texturing. So, you know, I'm not saying that you can't put this together and get something that looks nice, but you're going to struggle to build anything with some detail without adding aftermarket. I don't intend to add aftermarket to this. This will just be a bit of a kit bash, this one. They say it's level 4. I don't think it is. I think that the hardest part is probably putting those struts on and getting that to marry together. It's not overly complex. 121 parts is not. It's not a huge part count. I would see this as probably a level 3, and they're overselling it a little bit. You know, if you consider that their level 5 would be the Technic kit with the additional etch or wiring and lights or stuff like that, that this isn't one step away from that. So I would say it was a 3. So yeah, don't think it'll be a hard build. Yeah, so you know what? It's Revell. You get what you get if you buy Revell. It's better than some of their kits, and I think some of their kits probably do a better job than this one. So not the best of the recent releases, but yeah, looks nice from the outside, and the subject matter is a definite 10 out of 10. Catalinas will always sell because look at that, it's pretty, and I have a bit of a thing for seaplanes, I should say. So yeah. Okay, thanks for looking in. Stay well, everyone. Hope to see you soon.